Welcome to the Assessment 2 podcast guide for the marketing plan. The task summary is, this time you have to do an individual report of 2,500 words. Brooks regulations do not allow for more than that. And you have to strengthen the position of the e-bike brand that you've been allocated. It's very important to be aware that the time scale for your marketing plan has to be the 3-year period from 2020 to 2023. You can incorporate elements from the previous poster you did in the group work if you did well in that. Otherwise, you have to go back to the drawing board and do your SWOT properly in order to make a better marketing plan for Assessment 2, because this is worth 80% of the module. We're going to go through the report structure in detail in this podcast, so I won't spend too much time on this slide. I will, however, emphasize the importance of doing an executive summary after you finish the main marketing plan, about a page in length. If you don't know how to do a good executive summary, I would stress that you Google this, and I have provided some resources on Moodle where you can learn to do this more effectively. The executive summary should summarize all the main issues and recommendations you've made in your report. It is, after all, a summary for people who are in senior management positions who read the key points of your report and only refer to the greater detail if necessary. It is a skill that you do need to develop, and whilst it's not the main marks in this report, it is part of the marks for presentation and writing, so you need to bear that in mind. Equally, you need to do a detailed annotated contents and structure that well. I would try to use the custom template, look at the contents in there and add your own creative subheadings and make that a plan for writing your report. You can put the page numbers in afterwards. It's always ideal to have an introduction to a report that sets the scene. In the case of the marketing plan assessment, firstly, a brief statement of the purpose and scope of the plan and why you're doing it. Number 2, a summary profile of the brand and what it represents without going into any detail or situational analysis. I think this kind of section should be very brief and maximum of 150 words. You have to be mindful of your word count budget of 2,500 words. The first analytical section of your report will be the SWOT, or situational analysis as it's often known. So firstly, select 2 to 3 direct competitors with supporting rationale. That means, why did you select them as the main comparators for your e-bike brand? Just keep that very brief. As I've mentioned in the general feedback about the posters, even the very best ones did not include a systematic comparison of strengths and weaknesses and marketing practices of your selected brand compared to the competition. You cannot look at things in isolation in the 4Ps or STP or other areas of marketing practice. Everything is relative, so they have to be distinctive strengths and notable weaknesses. We've been going through this in lecture, so there are many examples. So analyze the strengths and weaknesses of your brand using comparative analysis. Therefore, there should be distinctive strengths in the 4Ps and other areas of observable marketing practice relating to your brand in comparison to your selected competitors. Your external analysis should critically examine key market trends and business opportunities. In some of the cases, you should use supporting statistics. A lot of that was missing from the posters. There are lots of stats on Mintel and in secondary research articles. And have you considered Euromonitor for a more international perspective? Not all business opportunities have to be quantified by market trends and statistics, but some of them. In other cases, you might be talking in general about gaps in the market, and that's absolutely fine. And then in other cases, it's about market trends that support those gaps in the market, where you do require some statistics. There will also be challenges that have to be overcome. They can be political challenges, or they can be psychological challenges relating to the customer. Even if customers sometimes need things, they have to be convinced, and you have to try and change their attitudes and behavior. Finally, it would be good to have a feeling about the competitive landscape in general in the industry and how that's developing. It's not just about e-bikes, it's about cycling and mobility. So don't restrict it just to the e-bike sector. There are also things you can think about on sustainability and renewable energy, which you can incorporate into your external analysis. It's probably best in terms of getting all the detail into one table for your SWOT and using landscape format in the A4 document. Once you've done your situational analysis, you can have an overall written section, which is a type of summary of the key external trends and opportunities. So a marketer has to be optimistic. And in a marketing plan, you're trying to do things. You're trying to come up with a proposal which convinces people in your organization to put resources behind the marketing plan. So you're not trying to just be persuasive to the customer, but to people internally. And then secondly, eventually, to come up with strategies which will convince customers to buy your product more. So it's very important to lay down key grounded assumptions and look at the actual opportunities which are in the market, which create what I call strategic imperatives. Things could be developments in the competitor landscape, the key statistics which denote gaps in the market and market opportunity, other key external issues that need to be considered, and what is the likely scenario overall in the near future. So in a way, the assumptions is bringing together the key factors on the market in one section just after your SWOT. Here is a brief example of a summary of assumptions. This relates to Tesla automobiles in the e-cars sector. This is not exactly the same type of thing you should do with e-bikes, but the principles are the same. It should be very brief because you have to be mindful once again of the word count, but you're providing an effective basis and rationale for your objectives. So in a way, the assumptions is a bridge between your situational analysis and the formulation of your strategic objectives in your marketing plan. So here is the example. Between 2013 and 2019, registrations for electric cars in the UK increased by an incredible 6,929%. That is truly exponential. So if people are saying e-cars aren't a serious proposition, then look again. From a political point of view, around 12 countries and 20 major cities around the world want to ban petrol and diesel cars by 2040. This includes the United Kingdom, who's already started banning some diesel vehicles from central urban areas in the UK, including some London boroughs. From a competitive point of view, the Nissan Leaf is the market leader in the UK with sales of around 20,000 vehicles each year of their pure electric vehicle. They're also the global leader in the sale of electric cars. Tesla, from an organizational perspective, produce excellent electric cars, but do not have a small vehicle in their product family. So the main weakness for Tesla are financial limitations in liquidity and production capacity. But that's not only a problem for Tesla. In the external competitive landscape, many car companies have financial limitations and resource challenges in trying to develop a new product because it's so expensive. So this has to be considered as an important assumption alongside the compelling growth of the market and the opportunities. In the STP section of your marketing plan, you don't need to discuss the type of variables involved in the segmentation. You should focus on the existing targeting and positioning and make suggestions of how to improve this. For example, how do you penetrate your target section more? and what is the target that and positioning that you're actually doing with the e-bike. And then, of course, there is the opportunity to develop further target sections and the positioning that you would do in relation to your e-bike range in those particular areas. You could examine personas, which I'm going to have a separate podcast on and provide links to. Personas are actually a way of bringing different types of targeting and positioning in segmentation together using a type of profiling which combines geodemographic, sociocultural, socioeconomic, psychographic and other forms of segmentation to provide a composite of your type of target that you will be using in your marketing strategy. Don't forget, this STP is not just a section by itself. When you eventually go on to your strategies and also your operational tactics within the marketing plan, you will need to consider the STP that you've developed in this particular part of the report and refer back to it. Now we come to another very important part of the marketing plan, which is setting objectives. This is not an easy thing to do, and it requires a lot of thought. It's very easy just to write down quick objectives, which are based on guesswork, but that will be very evident to the marker. So first of all, they should be SMART objectives. They should be specific and measurable, so you should include some form of particular target in your objective setting. Secondly, those targets should be based on some degree of data and secondary research from your situational analysis and assumptions, so they should be grounded in strategic imperatives. Therefore, although you can't always provide specific figures, you can provide effective, grounded estimates of what you're trying to achieve. This can be in normal marketing awareness, conversion, growth in market share, growth in profitability. It can be about increasing things in the area of digital marketing. Digital marketing does come into this, and I will have a separate podcast on that. I don't expect you to be experts in it, but having a combination of traditional and some digital marketing objectives would be great. Do not confuse objectives with strategies. They follow on from this logically in the marketing plan. You now need to state your overall strategies for the marketing plan. There can be a number of strategies. I would say 3 to 4 at the most is ideal. Therefore, you're not overdoing the scope of this marketing plan at 2,500 words. They should follow logically from your objectives and be connected to them. The word is congruence. They need to be specific. There's no point saying that the company needs to develop more products, or it needs to increase market share in a new market. Which markets, which products, what are the strategies that you're proposing? So these are the overall strategies. You don't need to go into overly abundant detail because you will do that in the next section, but you need to state them clearly in effective bullet points in a section of your marketing report. So while setting objectives and the overall strategies is very important, requires a lot of thought, those sections of your marketing report will be briefer in terms of word count. Now, here comes the detail, the execution programs, often known as marketing tactics. These are the detailed areas where you support the overall strategy and objectives of each thing that you've come up with to improve the position of the e-bike brand that you're working on. So this is where you go into detail about particularly the 4 Ps that are needed to deliver the proposed strategy. And you provide particular examples of how you're going to develop these to support the strategy. Each strategy usually has its own program. It's important to consider the control mechanisms of a marketing plan and the review and measurement techniques that are necessary. Of course, we recognise that you are not working in a professional scenario where you have access to the data of the organisation, but you can show some awareness of these areas to varying degrees. The first is timescale. You've been given a specification of 2000 to 2023, so you can put your strategies into a proposed timescale. After all, you cannot do everything at once, and time is a resource. So do try to provide an outline of the proposed timescales, because strategies and how you implement them is a project management exercise. Number 2. Whilst you don't have access to internal costings, you can recognise the size of the organisations and provide some estimated budgets for each strategy that you have proposed. Finally, whilst you might not be able to provide specific data, it would be very desirable to show your awareness of the other suggested measures and controls that would be appropriate to a marketing plan of this type. So you can look at the textbook and further research to support that in this section alongside the timescales and budgets. I'm going to keep this section very brief because you've gone over this many times in different modules. First of all, you have to have a Harvard style of referencing. I'll just remind you that a lot of you provided references at the end of your posters, but you didn't provide parentheses in the main posters themselves for the different sources that you were using as facts to support your opinions. You must incorporate this properly into the marketing report because there are marks available which are not insignificant for your referencing system. And that is not just the references you provide at the end. You have to incorporate parentheses into the main narrative of the marketing report. Appendices can be desirable. Please do not use appendices to dump word count, which is not mentioned in the main report. Appendices can be showing detailed analysis that you've done, which you then summarize in the main report. If you're not sure, you can discuss this with me in person by actually trying to do it in your report, and then when you come to the one-to-one session, we can see if this is working. The students who attend the module regularly and engage with Moodle probably don't need to listen to this slide, so in your case, please ignore. I would like to appeal to the other students in the best possible way. If you are at least listening to this podcast, please reflect. There are over 120 students registered on this module. In the last few weeks, only around 50 to 55 students are turning up for the lectures. You're missing an opportunity for learning because we go beyond the slides and the lectures, and quite rightly we do so because this is an attendance-based course. It's not a distance learning course. You have to have reasonable expectations of yourself and what you can achieve. So sometimes if you feel disappointed about marks, you need to reflect on how much you've gone to classes and how much you've engaged with Moodle and done proper further reading and independent learning. I have to state, from my own perspective, I have limited time and limited resources, and I want to help the students as much as possible, but my priority is with the students who engage the most. So if you leave everything to the last minute and then start coming to me in a panic, it is very difficult to support you. If anything does prevent you engaging, because sometimes there are genuine reasons and students have genuine problems and issues, then go to your academic advisor and or program leader and have a chat with them. You can also make yourself known to me. The university has lots of support mechanisms to help and advise you. Please read the exceptional circumstances policy that is now being put in place by the university. You can no longer ask module leaders using circumstantial evidence for 1 week extensions. You need to go to the Student Support Centre if you have a genuine reason why you can't meet the assessment deadline and speak to them about the options available. Remember, you will need proper evidence to support any extensions that you are looking for. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and I wish you all the best with the final assessment. Kind regards, Francis.